I feel like we're in ancient Rome. And the Visigoths are kicking down the doors, and the northern barbarian hordes are about to kick in Rome and, tell us, give us the what for. Now, all the aristocracy is left and headed on to Constantinople, and here we are sitting here waiting for this thing to unfold, and that's where I feel like we are right now.
I'm Chris Hampton, and I believe media is the ultimate tool for preserving our history. So join me as we expose the world of forbidden knowledge, hidden agendas, and secret technology. Today, I have a very special guest, Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. A lot of exciting videos you can find on his channel promoting individual freedom and being able to provide for yourself and your family, on your own. And so that's what I want to dive into. And without further ado, let me just introduce Billy. And Billy, just go ahead and tell us, how you got started and what got you down this road. I know you've been doing it for a long time.
Cool, man. Hey, good to be with you. Big fan of your work. Big fan of your documentary. Real honor to be here with you today and all those out there listening. Well, it all started for me back years ago when I was still very much in the matrix and joined the U.S. Army, became an airborne sapper, and, did a little time in the Middle East and, a lot of time in a lot of different schools in the Army, whether it's sapper school, Arctic school, jungle school, you name it. I took it all in like a sponge. Got out of there. And then later on, became an electrician. And while doing that, 2008 hit. And for me, that was really the thing that woke me up all the way. Now, I'd had critical questions about all these things I was told concerning everything from JFK to World War I, World War II, the Civil War, Revolutionary War. I had examined all these things, but nothing really brought it home to me to the extent that the crisis in '08 did, because that whole year I did not work. I mean, bro, I was a stone's throw away, me and my family, from panhandling on the street. And for me, it was the wake-up call I needed. So it was that time I said, look, if I ever get a job, if I'm ever able to go back, I'm going to pull first and foremost, I'm going to get myself out of the matrix. And what I mean by that is not be a corporate sharecropper and not be a blue collar sharecropper for anybody else. I'm going to figure out, I'm going to study, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get myself in a position to where, not if, but when this happens again, I'm not going to be wondering where the next meal is going to come from. So that marked for me the day where I said, okay, I'm going to figure out how to farm. I'm going to figure out how to butcher animals. I'm going to figure out how to grow my own food. And my wife, strangely enough, she'd been on this path for years and was trying for the longest to get me to come on board, but I wouldn't do it. I was very, very comfortable at the bottom of Plato's cave and being a lemming just like everybody else. But it was that crucible of really hard times. How's that saying go? That, it takes the days of darkness to make you see the light. And boy, did I see it. Wow. So from 2008 until this day, I haven't just lived in the state of preparedness. I wouldn't call it fear. I wouldn't say anything like that. But for me, it's been an ongoing journey that I don't believe is ever going to stop, of learning where my food comes from, how to process it, and how to teach others how to do the same thing. And that's really what my YouTube channel at Perma Pastures Farm started as. It was as a means to, at first, try to get other people that look like me, non-traditional farmers, Black people, Mexicans, anybody. That was the initial impetus in doing this. And then I realized, you know what, man, forget all that. Everybody, I mean, and it wasn't a matter of color or anything like that. I was just looking to try to reach non-traditional people, somebody that a lot of people out there that do stuff like this aren't even I get just never crosses into them to think that, hey, maybe these people might benefit from this. But you know what I'm finding out is everybody needs this information. And I'm going to teach anybody who's willing to learn.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly have learned quite a bit on your channel. I started my potato growing project after being inspired from one of your, and by the way, how did your potato harvest come out?
Well, in permaculture, we don't necessarily look for the biggest yield. In fact, we try to look to perennial systems. And when I say perennial, a lot of folks out there may not know what I mean. We want systems that we can put in place and then come back and harvest without having to keep like your annual plants, like your tomatoes and things like that, where you plant them, you get what you get, and then you got to go do it all over again. What we seek to do is to put in systems, whether it's orchards, whether it's food forests, whether it's gardens, swales, even many of our animals that we do, we try as best we can to stay within systems that are regenerating, that require less in terms of your labor. So to answer your question, the potatoes did okay. We got a gang of them inside. And we're doing things that have never been done before. That's what I find so exciting about this in terms of teaching other folks how to grow this stuff. For example, we've raised, and folks can go back and see the whole process on my YouTube channel. We raised 40 meat birds in a process called the chicken tractor on steroids. Now, I could give you a long, laborious idea of what that all entails, but in a nutshell, we raise these chickens without any store-bought feed. Well, given the times that we're in right now, it seems to me that coming up with novel methods like this, or adapting methods that have been used for other things to help people grow their, I mean, like I said, that's well over 200 some pounds of meat that we put in the fridge, and we didn't buy. In fact, when you lay it all out and when you do the math on it, we actually put money into our pockets. So we're the first people, to my knowledge, on planet Earth to raise these meat birds without any store-bought feed after a month. So
Wow.
It's systems like this that we're developing, inventing, and trying as best we can to not only do them, but do them in a way where it's not experimental, where we're showing you and teaching you along the way how you can do it with very limited means. And when I say limited means, you know, like our pigs we have out here, with our chickens, anything that is an omnivore, like a chicken or a pig, you can raise them for free. And it doesn't take a good eye to know how to do it. We basically take the things that people throw away at bakeries and at places like, I don't want to give away my honey hole, but there are national chains out there. There are national chains out there that are where it is astonishing how much food is destined for the trash can that you can reclaim, feed it to your chickens, pigs, get free eggs, free chicken, free pork. I'm going to butcher 2 pigs, put the equivalent of about 400 pounds of meat into my own fridge, all with the knowledge that I've gained from 2008. And you know what? I can put other people on the fast track, because we're going to record all this stuff, and I'm going to show people from start to finish, just like I did with the chickens, how you raise them from the day they come home, let's say from the hatchery, until the time you put them in the freezer. I want to show everybody how to do this to get as many people as possible to the point where you're producing your own food and less reliant on the powers that shouldn't be, as James Corbett would put it.
Right. Yeah. Like I always say on this channel, I think media is the ultimate way to preserve our history. So I think what you're doing by documenting the stuff that you're doing on your farm and giving that knowledge to others, I think it's a tremendous service to humanity.
Well, you know, that's the cool thing about history, is I'm a big history buff, and also one of the big reasons why I'm a big fan of your work, particularly the occulted history. And when I say occulted, I mean hidden history, as you well know. That's what permaculture is. That's exactly what we're doing here. And that's what Bill Mollison, the inventor, let's call, of permaculture, that's exactly what he did. He did something that none of us today could do. He would go to these indigenous tribes and find out these places that were in the backest, deepest, darkest woods, and find out how these people were doing it. And then he would find a way to replicate it. And that's exactly what we do in permaculture. We're basically taking these things that in history that have, I'm not necessarily inventing anything new. I am in the modern sense. But really, we're taking things that have largely been forgotten throughout our history, especially in terms of how we procure our food.
Right.
You know, if the nomadic peoples of this planet had to rely on annual everything, whether it be the grains or anything else, if they had to rely on that, they would largely have gone extinct. So what we're doing with permaculture is really going back into the historical way in which things were done, where perennials were more relied upon and annuals less so. And then going back to what you said in terms of our status quo and the way things are, I mean, you don't need to be Nostradamus to figure out that we are in perilous times. And it's kind of refreshing to know. I don't know how well you can see it in the background, but these hills are green. So it means you have grass. And when you have grass, you have solar collectors. And when you have solar collectors like grass, you have things like sheep that you can fatten on grass. You have things like cows that you can fatten on grass. You have even breeds of pigs out there that exist that you can largely fatten on grass. Things that largely require no outside inputs, things that you can find right there available.
Yeah.
And to do these things, whether you're in an apartment, you can still find ways to do a little bit of permaculture, whether you're on, large acreage or whether you're in 1 acre.
Yeah.
In fact, there are places like this family in California. In fact, they were in LA. It's been a story from years ago. They're on 1/3 of an acre, yet somehow producing 6,000 pounds of food on 1/3 of an acre. This can be done, and it can be done responsibly. And I tend not to use the word sustainably. It can be done regeneratively. Yeah, we're not doing anything sustainably. Sustainably, that's for the hipsters out there that feel like they want to just regurgitate something that was spoon fed to them. No, we do regenerative agriculture. I don't want to see things maintain what they are. When we run cows or pigs or sheep, when we run them through the landscape, to give you a brief example of what that is, we don't just take a piece of land and dump all of our animals out there. We do management intensive grazing. Well, what that means in a nutshell is that it requires something out of you. So what that means for us is that every single day we move these animals, and as we move them along, they don't come back to the same place for at least 30 days, sometimes up to 90 days. Exactly. So what does it do? It doesn't just, there's no sustainability involved. When you go back to that plot that you left 90 days before, it is regenerated. It's better than you found it.
Yeah, I like that. Regenerative.
That's right. I mean, and going back to some of the earlier points we brought up before, I mean, in terms of energy, there are so many things where there are flaws in permaculture. And when I say flaws, I mean, in terms of, I'm as far as a political persuasion, I'm the system's worst nightmare. I'm a person of color that's also a libertarian. Even an anarchist for the most part, but the true definition of anarchy.
Yeah, the true anarchy.
Right.
Yes.
I don't need Uncle Sam or anybody else to tell me how to live.
No.
But one of the things we do want to get to, in addition to food independence, is also energy independence, where we do things strategically, where we put our water in the highest places in the landscape. When every time we have that water go through something, we capture its energy. See, with permaculture, we can either deflect it, maintain it, capture it, or amplify it. And so if I'm going to have water go from one stream, let's say that's up top here, to the one down below, or one water catchment system to the one down below, we use inline turbines to capture that energy, put it back to a battery, then we can use it. Now, granted, I'll be the first one, being a journeyman electrician for a very long time, believe me, I'm well aware of what Tesla did back in the day. And I know what's available out there and what's being kept from us. And you yourself have talked in great length about all these things that are occulted, that are hidden from us. We don't have access to those things today, but even without the benefit of having those wonderful things that could make life abundant for all of us, we can still do it. Yeah. We can still do it responsibly, and we can do it in accordance with the non-aggression principle. So these things are available to us. We can maintain. Christian, it's funny because even back in Texas before I left, I was working on a job and I gotten permission.
Yeah, that was the first video I saw of yours, actually, the chickens outside the job site, right?
Yeah, man, we're on a construction site. And to my knowledge, I mean, if somebody else has done it, I'm not aware of it. I'm not saying it to say that, hey, look at me, I've done this. Bro, if we were to take just the sides of interstates or highways, all of this unused land, and did something with it, there would not be a hungry person on planet Earth if we just did that in the United States of amnesia. Yeah. Now, take those little spots like the one I had on that job site where I'm starting a food forest. I'm starting an orchard on the job with the permission of the people there. Also running chickens, which they lost their minds on that one. They thought I was joking when I said I was going to bring chickens. All of a sudden they see a chicken tractor out there and chickens on the job. Believe me, they lost it. But they came around to it. But had I not left there, I'd already had permission from the people next door to run sheep over there. All of these pockets of land that we can be growing, like Joel Salatin says, man, people are growing weed in national forests. You mean nobody ever thought about growing tomatoes?
Right.
Bro,
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting you say that. I just watched a documentary about Venezuela, which I'm sure you're aware of the hyperinflation and the hunger problem there. When I look at these video and I think, can they not plant some food? Can you not plant some corn?
you know, that's funny when you bring up those other places like Venezuela and some of these other countries. In many of those places, food comes easily. Like the folks I know that are now expatriating in Costa Rica and places like that. You just take a few steps into the jungle, bam, you got some fruit. And it comes easy in some of those places. So it's astonishing to me that there aren't better food systems in place in places like Venezuela where folks could actually procure more of their own food. But,
Right.
you know, going back to the things that are thrown out in this country, first of all, I can't even go. It is not even legal in just about every state that I'm aware of to be able to just get the scraps that get thrown into a dumpster at your local grocery store. And I'm talking like, you know, if I had just the scraps alone, this is no exaggeration. I saw what was being thrown away when I did have access. And when I say I had access, I mean without permission. You could feed, and this is no exaggeration, probably 50 hogs and several thousand chickens by what comes out of just one grocery store in a week. But what do they do with it? They take it all, they compact it, put it in the dumpster, send it away. Now, just in the places where I go right now, I go out one day a week and I get enough food to feed 2 pigs and all the chickens just for one day, just one slight investment of going there and picking it up. It's astonishing the level of waste that we do have. And it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, I'll ask for permission, but there are such a thing as unjust laws too.
Hmm.
So if somebody gives me access, or if it's public land, and I say, nobody's growing anything out there, maybe I will. I remember I actually did this once. I'd almost forgotten about this. This is years ago. I was working at the VA hospital in Leavenworth, Kansas, and they have I don't even know how many hundreds of acres out there. And typical of every VA hospital, the graveyard is immaculate. They care more about the dead than the living. You go to the VA hospital, of course, it's falling down around itself.
Mm.
But they have acres and acres and acres of unused land out there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to plant some food out here. I did that. And don't you know, some of the dopes out there were given orders to go in there and run down the fruit trees I'd planted out there.
Wow.
I mean, it's just,
Makes no sense.
this is mindlessness. It's stupidity.
Yeah.
On a level that's really hard to measure, but it seems like it only happens here in America, but we're perilously close. I mean, going back to the central point here, that number one, we can grow food everywhere. It just takes a little bit of an imagination. And at the end of the day, man, we are heading for a place in this country that is undreamed of. I mean, you cover a fair amount of it in what you do on your channel, but we are definitely heading to a place. I feel like we're in ancient Rome. I think we're in like the 4th century, and the Visigoths are kicking down the doors, and the northern barbarian hordes are about to kick in Rome and, you know, give us the what for. Now, all the aristocracy is left and headed on to Constantinople, and here we are, the proletariat,
Oh, God.
sitting here waiting for this thing to unfold, and that's where I feel like we are right now.
Really?
And I feel, but I don't live in fear. That's the cool thing about it, is because I know that at the end of the day, no matter what happens, that I know that I have the wherewithal and the knowledge and the skills and the ability to feed my family. And I'm trying as best I can to evangelize this information as far and wide. And I thank you for the opportunity to just hit a few more people that maybe there are others out there that see the handwriting on the wall as I do and feel like, hey, you know what? Maybe it's time to go to work on this stuff and at least put a few things back.
Yeah, and that's why I reached out, because I think we need to share that message.
If you can't, let's say somebody says, okay, I'm behind the curve. I need to get started right now. What can I do? Well, you have people out there selling these emergency seed packs, which are largely a bad idea because it takes a couple of generations sometimes to get those seeds. You need to get off and running as quickly as possible. But what I would encourage everybody to do, get storable things that last a very long time. Things like oatmeal, rice, beans, things you can put, I mean, for crying out loud, you can go to a Sam's although I hate that place, you can go to a Sam's and go get a 50-pound bag of rice for about 14 bucks. You can go get bags and bags of beans for next to nothing. Put them in 5-gallon buckets, preferably Mylar bags. You get
Right.
40-year life on that stuff.
I think you have a video tutorial on how to do some of these things, right?
Right, right. So if you had $100, I did it on, you know, hey, Joe Blow has $100 out there and you want to get prepared. Well, basically I showed how with $100, you can feed yourself. Now, you're not going to feel like you're at Club Med, but you're going to stay alive. You know, 73 days is what I figured. If you ate nothing but what was in those tubs,
right,
73 days is a pretty long way to go on $100.
Well, you know what we haven't spoken about here is water. What do you do?
Question. Good question. Okay, so from the ground level of any permaculture design, the first thing, now there's a bit of debate on whether or not you should start with water or access. I always say access. And then, you know, what good is having water in a place if you can't access it?
Right.
If you have no accessibility. So in terms of water, folks, I mean, that's part of the impetus of why I moved here. Number one, the seclusion of the mountains, but also water comes easily in a place like this. But you're in Texas, and I just moved from Texas. So what we did in terms of water, if you're on acreage, it helps to put as much water storage as you can in the highest places. And what I mean by that is, if you have the ability to make a pond, do it. Put it as high in the landscape as you possibly can. And then put subsequent ponds further down. Use rainwater catchment. There's cheap ways to go about doing that. You can get reused 330-gallon, 350-gallon, I can't remember which, IBC totes that you can use to capture water off the side of your house, your barn, whatever structure you have. I would also highly encourage people, because let's say there is something where every bit of our infrastructure in most of America runs on electricity one way or the other. Let's say if the power lines go down, guess what? You got no way to transmit. You have no way to not only transmit power, but you have no way to move water, because largely that's how it's done here in the United States. So in terms of water, that's what you want to do. You want to try to use every surface you can. There's no shortage of videos out there, some of which I've even provided, where you can capture that water, use it for drinking water. Like here, where I am, okay, I didn't concern myself so much about water because I do live in the mountains. There's streams everywhere. I could throw a rock and hit a stream. I got here on this particular property, I do happen to have, you know, multiple sources of water, but my well is 600 feet deep.
Wow.
Well, let me tell you something. When the water goes out, you're not sticking a bucket down 600 feet. So it made me realize the extent to which I had to get hot on rainwater collection in terms of what I got coming up on the roof. Now, there's easy rainwater calculations that you can do everywhere. But folks, even if you have nothing more than a 55-gallon drum, it's better than nothing. So water is first and foremost your most important component, and that's what you should start with. But like I said, here, I didn't start with that because I live in a place in America where surprisingly water comes easily at such a time. Now, where you are, you technically get all of your water within just a few months, and then you're in drought throughout most of summer, if not longer. So your rainwater collection systems there need to be very, very robust. There's a guy I know down there. He teaches permaculture in Dallas at the School of Permaculture. I think he has a 30,000-gallon tank at his place.
Oh, wow.
Now, these things are completely available. Some of them are more affordable than others.
Yeah.
But I would definitely encourage everybody in any way you possibly can, capture water and as much of it as you can. If you have too much of it, well, it's easier to get rid of it than to capture it in the first place, especially in more temperate places that you live right now. So yeah, capture everything you can, get as much in terms of water storage that you can possibly hold.
Yeah.
And multiple sources of it too. Instead of, I mean, I'm more subscribed, instead of having one 30,000-gallon tank, for me, it makes sense to have, like within the preparedness community. Now notice I don't say prepper. I don't call myself a prepper. I say preparedness because they've somehow managed to convince the United States of amnesia that everything that ends in ER is a bad thing. Truther, birther, add ER to anything and you automatically make it a bad word. So within the preparedness community, we have a motto that it goes something like this: 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So we have redundancy in everything we do. We don't just have one system. We have at least 2, 3, 4, 5, So instead of having one 30,000 gallon tank, I would rather have a multiple of smaller tanks that can aid one another. So
Yeah, I get you.
one catastrophic failure, let's say in that 30,000 gallon tank, somebody decides to put some double out buck in the side of it. Well, you're screwed, Jack. But if you got a series of 500 gallon tanks,
Yeah.
you can make repairs on that. You can do what you need to do. You can take it out of service and work on it. So redundancy, multiplicity, that's what we do in the preparedness community, not the prepper community.
I remember the very first episode of Doomsday Preppers when it first came out. And it was a guy, like you say, he was in Arizona and he had a pool in his backyard, and he put like a net above the pool where the chickens were living on the net, and they were pooping down into the pool. And then the poop from the chickens was feeding the fish, and he had a tilapia pond. And he said they ate tilapia every single day, and that their pond was self-sustaining. Basically, it kept, I think the tilapia have like 300 babies or something like that. And he said they were having fish spaghetti and fish this and tilapia that. I was, wow. But I mean,
but don't wind up like I did. Some guy I knew did a lot of aquaponics like that. There's aquaponic systems. This dude there was a potluck, and my man brought some fish chili. I'm like, dude, I never even heard of fish chili, man.
See, there you go.
It wasn't right, man. It was totally incorrect. But hey, I'll give him an A for trying, man. Tilapia fish chili, man. So yeah, these things have their limits in my view. But if you're starving, man, you'll eat anything you got to. But yeah, these are awesome systems out there that I can't possibly encapsulate in just the time we're going to speak. But there are so many options out there, and it's fun. At the end of the day, I'll be honest with you, Christian, every night I go to bed, when my little motto at my channel is permaculture. I'm the permaculture pimp daddy, and pimp stands for permaculture is my passion. It really is, because every night before I go to bed, before I pray, and I do pray every single night, man, I'm sitting here thinking about all the awesome projects that I want to do the next day, the things that are going to take me just one step closer, 2 steps closer, 5 steps closer to getting myself more and more and more away against the levers of control that they have over all of us.
Yeah. And
more into the levers of control that I can provide myself and provide the people that are around me. And one of the awesome things in permaculture that I absolutely adore is the prime directive, which is take immediate responsibility of yourself and your family, and do it right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that's the prime directive. You got me right there.
Yeah.
And the 3 ethics: earth care, people care, and any abundance that you have given to the previous 2, man, these are things I can get along with, man. I can definitely get down with that. Yes. So I got too many eggs. Let's say you're my neighbor, Chris. Hey, man, I got too many eggs. You need some eggs? Yeah. Hey, you know what? Hey, I got some leftover whatever, man. Maybe you need it. I got these apples. It's, these things, these systems that we can put into place where we can mutually aid one another.
Oh, yeah.
Without coercion, without force, without all these things.
Oh, yeah.
All of us, in like Plato's allegory of the cave, everybody's chained at this existence at the bottom of this decrepit and dark cave. And when you come out of it, as you well know, I've seen the work you do. So you're definitely not on your way. You're not just getting that light in your eyes leaving Plato's cave. You're outside of it, just like I am. Just like, the people we mutually know are well outside Plato's cave. Well, it's also a troubling existence too when you get out there, because you find yourself to a certain extent lonely, because you realize just how many people are content to be spoon-fed this knowledge and this idiotic worldview and this total inversion of everything that should be natural law, things that we should naturally as autodidacts gravitate to, things that we should also that we should champion, are just, it's like I'm speaking Swahili to the majority of the American populace. With that said, it's really been a pleasure, man. I mean, I can't begin to tell you, man, because I don't get a whole lot of interaction with people that can see the world for what it is, man. So it's truly a pleasure to be with you here today. Anybody that wants to find my work can find us at Instagram at Perma Pastures Farm, or you can find a YouTube channel. Come there, check us out, subscribe, tell everybody we're doing things that are unique, and things that can help you and everybody else out there, man. We really want to get, it's not in the interest of aggrandizing myself in any way. It's trying to get this information out of there, because the more people we have informed on how to do this stuff, the less I got to worry about some dupe, some hoople head knocking on my door wanting to steal everything I have if he knows how to clothe and feed and take care of himself. So it's been truly a pleasure to hang out with you today, bro. I hope we can do it again in the future.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks, Billy. I appreciate it. And keep doing what you're doing, man.
All right. You have a good one, bro.
You too. I'll talk to you next time.
All righty. Bye.
All right. Bye.